A briefing on parkland dedication requirements. Just for or for timing purposes and clock purposes, after we do that, we will then go to the council items of interest that have been pulled. Those are 6:15 and 16, and then we'll go into the executive session.
And Mayor and Council, on this item for parkland dedication requirements, we've asked Kimberly McNeely to make the presentation. We'll attempt to try to explain what were the requirements before the law and what the requirements are post-law, and then try to offer some approaches as we go into the new year in terms of how we might be able to deal with some of its effects. We're not completely ready to deal with all of those issues, but we know that needs to get done. And so let me turn it over to Kimberly to tee this up and proceed with this presentation.
So good morning, Council, Mayor and Council. Kimberly McNeely, serving as the Parks and Recreation Director, and with me I have Principal Planner Robin Hamans, and Robin will be providing you the presentation, and I will be here to help answer questions along with the entire park, not the entire, but along with some parkland dedication representatives from our planning team.
Good morning, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. My name is Robin Hamans. I'm a principal planner with the Parks and Recreation Department. Today we're going to talk about the parkland dedication requirements. We'll go over the background for HB 1526, the changes to the parkland dedication ordinance, an overview of what that ordinance language will look like, the geographic areas prescribed by the state bill, and our timeline for compliance. So HB 1526 was introduced into the last legislative session by a representative from Corsicana. The bill affects cities with a population over 800,000, including Austin, Houston, San Antonio, Dallas, and Fort Worth. This represents about 25% of the state's population. The bill requires Austin to make substantial changes to the current parkland dedication ordinance to be in compliance with state law. And there is very little room for the city's discretion in the new ordinance language. The bill impacts only multifamily and hotel-motel development applications filed on or after January 1st, 2024. For the purpose of this presentation, multifamily is inclusive of hotel-motel units, and all changes mentioned in this presentation apply only to multifamily unless specifically noted. The bill preempts the city from requiring parkland dedication on commercial developments, reversing recently adopted changes to the PLD ordinance. However, municipalities all across the nation will be taking advantage of Austin's work and adopting their own. Next, we'll review the summary of changes made to the bill. So the ordinance is currently under development, the language. Sorry. I'm so sorry. There we go. Most significantly, the state law reduces the required acres of parkland per 1,000 residents from today's 9.4 acres to just under a tenth of an acre to 3 acres, depending on the location of the project within the city. This is because, unlike the existing ordinance, which is based on a nexus between new development and its impact on parkland, the state bill is written with the assumption that residents expect less acres of parkland per person as the density of the neighborhood increases. This creates an inverse relationship between the density of the city and the amount of parkland available to use. The bill also caps any land dedication to just 10% of the site area for multifamily properties. Today, only properties within the urban core are capped at 15%. Finally, fee collection is shifting from the time of site plan or subdivision permit to the time of certificate of occupancy, or CO. There is typically a 16-month to 5-year delay between the time of permit and CO, which means there will be an initial delay in fee collection that could impact the parkland acquisition and development budget up to 5 years. So the ordinance is currently under development. We're still writing it. But what is provided here is an outline of what the language will look like. These terms largely apply just to multifamily and hotel-motel development. In council, you will adopt the geographic areas, the central business district, urban and suburban areas, which are used in calculating the fees. The fees are set via an average appraised value of land in those areas once a decade and increase year over year by no more than the consumer price index before being reset at the average appraised value again. At this time, we do not know the average land value in the geographic area, as those areas have not yet been adopted. The geographic areas may be redesignated at any time by an amendment to the comprehensive plan. Parkland dedication can be satisfied with land dedication, fee payment, or a combination, and the formulas shown on the slide differ from today's fee formulas, but are prescribed by the state bill. There is now only a single fee that encompasses both parkland acquisition and development for multifamily fees. Currently, we have a parkland fee in lieu and a park development fee, as two separate fees. The park level of service is considerably reduced from today's 9.4 acres per 1,000 people to just over 3,000 square feet per 1,000 people in the CBD area, and a max of 3 acres per 1,000 people in the suburban area due to the new dwelling unit and density discount factors prescribed by the bill. As a result, parkland level of service will decline, and PART predicts we will need to adjust our KPI, or key performance indicators, and service goals to keep pace with the impacts of these new formulas. There are some modifications to standards for dedicated parkland, and as previously mentioned, commercial development is exempt. Fees must be paid prior to CO, and there's a new cap on land dedication. Affecting both single-family and multifamily, there's a modified appeals process which allows the applicants to appeal any aspect of the land dedication, including orientation on the site and amount, and this appeal must be heard within 60 days or it is considered settled in the applicant's favor. Finally, there is also a modified parkland early determination review. Next, Scott Grantham will cover the geographic areas.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Scott Grantham with Parks and Recreation Department. One of the key mandates of the state law is that the city designate all areas within its boundaries as central business district, urban, or suburban, with different density factors and fee levels set for each designation. These designated areas are strictly for parkland dedication purposes. They don't affect any other city requirements or standards. City Council will be holding a public hearing this Thursday and asked to consider these areas. The geographic areas may be amended once adopted at any time with an amendment to the comprehensive plan. According to the bill, the areas and associated levels of service, then this is a quote from the bill, reflect the diminishing expectation of parkland in increasingly dense urban environments. The boundaries of these designated areas, which are called, we've referred to sometimes as PLD rings, are at the discretion of the city to establish. Each area will have a unique average land value assigned by the appraisal district. Each area will have a unique, the parkland level of service is different in each area. Each area's fees will be calculated using 0.005 acres per unit multiplied by the average land value for that area, then divided by the density factor according to the state bill. Those density factors are 1 for the suburban area, 4 for urban, and 40 for the CBD. We provided what those values would equal for parks level of service. So the City of Austin's current goal is to provide 24 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents. Okay, next slide. The state bill sets a strict timeline for compliance. The new ordinance and the geographic areas must be adopted by December 1st and go into effect for all new site plans and subdivisions with hotel and motel multifamily uses by January 1st. Codes and Ordinances Joint Committee voted to recommend the term sheet for the ordinance on October 18th. The Parks and Recreation Board likewise voted to recommend the term sheet for the ordinance on October 24th. They noted in their resolution the negative impacts of the bill on the parks level of service. The geographic areas will be considered by council this Thursday with a public hearing, and the code ordinance will be considered the repeal and replace of the parkland dedication ordinance will be considered by council no later than November 30th, following a postponement by the Planning Commission on October 24th. So with that, we'll open it up for questions.
Councilmember Ryan Alter, then Councilmember Allison Alter.
Just one quick comment as we look at this. Now, thank you for this detailed information. I just want to put out one piece of context that doesn't change what we're doing here, but I think just is important to note and understand. I took a look last year at our park acquisition to see what the impacts that this could potentially have. And last year, over 88% of our land acquisition came from parkland dedication. And another large portion of that remaining 12% we acquired with some of the fees from the parkland dedication. So as we kind of navigate this new space, I'm not saying all that's going to go away because the bill does still allow us some acquisition of land or a fee in lieu, but I think we just it's important that we think about how we address the reduced amount of both fee and land that we might find ourselves in, and think about what we might do to offset that. So that's just a point of reference. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Allison Alter.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation. Would have loved to see exactly the impact so that we can see how much this process has gutted our parkland dedication. Appreciate the numbers that my colleague referenced. We may go down as low as $1 million in the next budget in terms of this funding source moving forward by some calculations, and obviously depends on the numbers that come back where we land. But it's not so much the money that's important, it is the ability to dedicate the land. And, one thing you didn't cover is that there are scenarios where we would have to pay for land if we wanted it, because even if it's floodplain, we have to pay full appraisal value for it, and the fees are set so much lower than the cost of land that there are scenarios where we would actually end up paying them for land. And I think that we need to be very careful to watch those kinds of scenarios and where that would happen, and we need to consider taking some legal action, I believe. I believe this is requiring us in those scenarios to pay somebody for something more than it's worth, which violates some tenets that we have as a city from the law. And so I think that we really do need to explore the options here that we have. This is an extreme overreach, in my view. It violates all of the tenets of the national standards for doing parkland dedication because it severs that relationship between the parkland and the other pieces. So I want to just throw out there, I think that we are going to need to, now that we have a better understanding of what this means, we really do need to think about every tool in our toolbox to fight against this. I understand at this point we have to move forward with it, but it is just absolutely devastating for our parks. And it's not so much the fees. I just want to be really clear. It's the way that it cuts off our knees and our ability to require the land dedication. It's very unclear what happens if somebody wants to give us more land. It creates all sorts of uncertainties and problems, I think, moving forward, even if we have a developer that wants to have that park space, which we know is going to enhance their property. This is just, really, really sad for our community that values our parks. And I look forward to working with you, Councilmember Ryan Alter, on finding alternative funding sources. Did you guys want to add something? Look like you were.
Thank you, Councilmember. Did want to mention the scenario that you mentioned about if a developer would ever be paid for their land, that that ordinance is in draft form now, but we are looking at baking that into the ordinance, that's a scenario that we would not do.
Okay. But is there a scenario where if they want to provide more land, they want to dedicate more land, that we don't have to pay for it?
It's a volunteer.
And if I need to take this into a legal session, that's fine. But
Yeah. Hi, Erica Lopez, Assistant City Attorney. Right now we are talking about when land is being required in order for the applicant to receive development approval. If the applicant wanted to voluntarily donate land outside of that process, then the city has separate processes in which we accept donated land. So we would just separate it from the approval of the development that they're proposing. So we just treat those as two separate processes if there was a scenario, if that was a scenario.
Okay, I can imagine lots of complications with that, but we can take that offline. Thank you.
Council, thank you all very much for the presentation.
Wait, I'm sorry, I have one last question, if I might.
Councilmember Allison Alter.
There was discussion about possibly changing the boundaries for the suburban to the urban, and we talked about how that would affect the formula for this. Does that also affect the formula for parkland deficiency? Because it would change some areas from requiring a quarter mile to a half mile for access?
That's something that we haven't explored at this time. That is possible that it may change those boundaries, but those boundaries were set on the 2009 watershed or walk to a park resolution that council set for the urban, and those boundaries are defined by the current urban core, which is still defined in our.
Okay, if you could just clarify for me that, because I'd like us to be able to move forward where we keep the walk sheds as we had them before, even if we have this map.
Yes, we'll discuss it and bring you a
Okay.
clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for the presentation. Members, that'll take us to